Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today something a bit unusual, some kind of organic vehicle. This is the Rubicon horse-drawn Wagon, which is a plastic kit in 28mm or 156 scale that should satisfy all your needs for horsing around. I make no apologies for awful jokes. The back of the box shows an illustration of the horse and wagon, a coloured sprue diagram, and a digital rendering that shows the optional stowage set loaded onto the wagon. That is sold separately and no stowage is included with the base kit, though you do get the choice of a 1 or 2 horsepower wagon. Inside the box we find one sprue containing all of the horse and cart bits that we'll need. Unless of course you want 2 wagons, in which case you'll just have to buy another. The parts on this sprue are unsurprisingly very neatly moulded, and I wasn't able to find anything wrong with them. If you've built a Rubicon kit before, that won't be news to you. You always say that, Herbert? Yeah, because it's true. You will of course still have to remove the very minor mould lines and the burrs where you clip the parts from the sprue, but that shouldn't take too much work at all. The horses look pretty good in my opinion, though I'm no horse mechanic, but they do look quite horsey indeed. They're actually a bit better looking than I was expecting too. The straps and stuff look rather good, and it seems as though some of it is positioned in such a way to help hide the gaps when they're assembled. No decals are included in this kit, and because they're horses and a civilian cart, that's not really surprising, is it? The instruction booklet is the same good quality booklet I expect from Rubicon. The instructions themselves are fairly simple, and this isn't a particularly complicated build. The last page tells us how you should attach the reins and traces, if you choose to do so. You'll need some thread or thin plastic strips for this, none of which are included in the kit. This is just if you want to get extra fancy. Okay, let's glue some plastic together. And I guess it makes sense to start with the horses. I'm doing this because I want to, and not because the instructions are making me. Gluing the 2 halves of the body together is pretty easy. They're keyed and fit well enough. There is a bit of a gap, but you shouldn't see that on the bottom, and the tail is going to hide some of that as well. The straps along the top of the horse should at least distract a bit from the gaps there. I'll fill them in later. The tail comes next. It's easily glued into the large hole on the horse's butt. You can see that this should hide any gaps there pretty well, and is very taily. Next, the head. This is simple to put together like the body was. It's also a bit gappy, and some pressure does help this a bit, though some putty is still going to be needed later on. It's a bit hard to explain away strange gaps in horses, so we'll have to fill them in. There are a few different parts that can be used for the heads, and the instructions state that there are 8 possible poses for the horses, which I think is pretty cool. Gluing the head onto the body seems like a pretty logical next step. It fits pretty well, though, as I think I mentioned on stream, the neck harness thing makes it look a bit odd to me. It kind of looks like the neck doesn't quite match the body, but that might just be because I'm not very knowledgeable about horses. It also looks weird that there are no ears, so why not add some of those? They more or less just drop right into place, and it should be fairly obvious if you've got them on wrong. There are in fact 4 sets of ears on the sprue, so you've got plenty to choose from. As you can probably see, I built 2 horses, because initially I wanted the 2-horse wagon. Then I realised in that configuration, the horses aren't physically connected to the wagon, unless you add the reins and traces yourself. So I changed my mind and went with the single-horse cart, mostly because I wanted the entire thing to be joined together so they don't get separated and lost. I start building the wagon by attaching the bar thing that the horse stands between to the front axle part. This is pretty simple, though I did find the angle at which mine went together to be a little bit too high, and the horse ended up hovering. I was able to fix it, it's just something to keep in mind when doing this. The wheels can then be glued on. The axle goes all the way through the wheel hub. These are the front wheels, so we use the smaller pair. You probably don't want to mix and match the large and small wheels here, not unless you want some kind of weird cart that probably wobbles all over the place. You can see that the front of the wagon fits to the horse pretty well. Now for the rest of the wagon. I glue the rear axle holdy bit, which is the technical term, and it doesn't seem to matter which way around it goes. The sides of the cart come next, and there's some good keying to guide this, which makes this very easy to do. There is a bit of a gap along the inside where the sides join the floor, but I think that's meant to be there. Rear wheels come next, and these are just as easy to install as the forward pair. That is to say, wheelie easy. There's a little bit of play to these, and the front wheels too, and I did try to get them nice and straight, though I think slightly wobbly wheels on a wagon like this wouldn't be too unrealistic. Probably more realistic than not, actually. The seat for the driver comes next, and it's very decadent and comfortable looking. You can't see me, but I winked to indicate that there was sarcasm. The part is simple, which suits the rest of the cart just fine, and it goes into place easily, which suits me fine. I connect the front wheel section to the rest of the wagon, and it's done. Not a whole lot to it really. The next step would be to add the horses, but before that, I want to show you something that I thought was pretty cool in this kit. These little parts. They fill the gaps in the sides of the horses if you're not attaching them to the single horse wagon. I'm assuming that there's something for the reins to connect onto. The cool thing about these is that you're supposed to use the number tag bit as a handle. You glue it in, clip the handly bit off, then clean it up. It's a lot less fiddly than clipping off the tiny bit, probably losing it, and then trying to get it into place if you ever find it. I'm sure you can do this kind of thing with other parts in plenty of other kits as well, but it's just something that never occurred to me. I'm glad I've got that little idea in my mind now. It could be very useful in the future. Of course, if you're going to attach the horse to the single cart, like I am, you want those open slots on the side. The wagon goes into place nice and easy, though I did end up with a case of the dreaded hover horse. It's not that easy to see from this camera angle, but the horse was hovering significantly higher than the wheels. What I did was to add some glue where the bathing joins the front wheel section, bend them a bit, and then use weights to hold everything in place while the glue bonded. It's still not perfect, but it is a lot better. I am thinking about mounting this onto a base, and gluing it down would obviously help to keep everything on the ground. Because there's no stowage, I figured why not load the wagon up with the second horse. I'm sure the horse would be fine with that, and more than happy to just stand there and be driven around. And that's the Rubicon 28mm scale horse-drawn wagon completed. I'm pretty happy with it. It's something a bit different from Rubicon and not really something you see all that often. I guess unless you're a horse and cart modeler. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with this kit and how it's turned out. It is a civilian horse-drawn wagon, so it doesn't really belong to any particular force, but I'm sure you could incorporate it into any army you wanted. Germany did use a lot of horses, for example, but I've no idea if they used wagons like this for military purposes, but they probably did. Maybe this wagon could have been commandeered or something like that. There's a lot of possibilities. Even if you didn't want to incorporate this into one of your forces, you could use it as terrain, or well, not terrain, it's a horse. A decoration is probably a better word, or maybe an objective or something in your games. The kit itself is pretty simple to put together and quite enjoyable. It is primarily a wargaming kit, which does explain that simplicity, and while it isn't the most complicated kit, it still looks quite good and is fairly well detailed. It probably won't surprise you to learn that I'm not exactly an expert on horses or the wagons they pull, but I'm pretty convinced by this, and I think once it's painted it should be quite a good representation of the real thing. Rubicon do offer a stowage kit for this, though you do have to buy it separately. I'm of two minds about that. I do like having extras, but I can see that it would make this kit cheaper for those who either would like to have an empty wagon, or have their own stowage to use, or would prefer to make it themselves. And I can definitely see the fun in that. I might even raid my bits box for appropriate stuff, and make my own load for this, but that's something for another day. Like pretty much every model I do, this was built live on stream. As I said, it was pretty quick to do, only taking one stream. And I do find it satisfying to see results in one build session. Anyway, if you want to watch me glue bits of plastic together live on stream, and partake in the chat with the other awesome folk there, head on over to twitch.tv/Herbert_Erpaderp, or follow the convenient link in the description below. Give me a follow and then come say hi when I'm live. It'll be good times, and I do have plans for some more Rubicon builds in the near future. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and if you've built this kit yourself and you'd like to share some pictures of it, or any other model really, maybe drop by Discord and share a few photos. That would be awesome. If you've not done so already, why not subscribe, follow, ring the bell, become a patron, or maybe just come say hi on Discord or Twitch. And if you're feeling really helpful, share this video with your friends or anybody you think might get something out of it. Links to all of my things are in the description below, and, as always, I shall return soon. So, until then, be excellent to each other, and thank you for watching. Farewell.